author's intent in terms of communication is communicating the structure, but sometimes the impact that you want to have on an audience is something you really don't want to state. You might have a stated agenda of which they're aware, and you might also, or instead, have a hidden agenda that you don't want the audience to be aware of. For example, there are 4 different kinds of agendas, 4 different categories, because in Dramatica, of course, we always find it a most complete exploration to divide things in groups of 4 and then subdivide each of those into groups of smaller units of 4. That way we cover the mass, energy, space, and time of something, or the knowledge, thought, ability, and desire of something. Often we'll end up with 8 items, which effectively represent mass and energy, space, and time, knowledge, ability, thought, and desire. Those things then create a chart of 8. And here we have 8 items on the bottom of the page, 4 stated agenda, 4 hidden agenda, and they're equivalents, like mass is the equivalent of knowledge, energy is the equivalent of thought. Well, they go side by side. They have a relationship. So the stated agenda is to educate. You just want to inform your audience in an unbiased fashion. But the hidden agenda is to bias by either leaving out information, adding other information that doesn't really belong but appears to be, either of those ways, giving the information, as far as you know, as being impartial, or the hidden agenda of biasing them so they come away thinking that certain information is one way when it's really not. The next level up from that, the next level of intensity, is to persuade your audience. You educate them, next you persuade them, where you say, here are all the facts, educate, but now let's look at how the facts relate. Let's make a case based on these facts, and the audience is aware of it. When you bias, you give the audience an understanding that is in error of the facts, and then you carry it up to the next level, which is pandering. In other words, you provide opportunities for them to see their beliefs as being right. So you first bias them to have a particular belief and then support that by pandering to them. You educate, you persuade, next step, you provoke. You educate them, unbiased, persuade them based on the facts, and then provoke them by saying there's some kind of inequity here, get to action, because if you don't, X will happen. And you make the case in a straightforward fashion. They're aware of it. If you affect the audience in a way they're not aware, you bias them, then you pander to that bias, and by pandering to that, then you incite them. In other words, you pull the bone away from them. You say that, yeah, look at all this. We get to enjoy this because this is our feelings about things. We're biased. And now we're going to wallow in this feeling and experience it. And now something threatens this feeling, and everyone goes berserk. They lose control. That's a hidden agenda. They don't know that they're being made to do this. The last bit is to say the stated agenda is to educate, and then based on the facts persuade, and then showing what an inequity that might exist to provoke them, and then to manipulate them. Manipulation is not a hidden agenda. Why? Because you know it's happening. In other words, pulling on their heartstrings, showing the kids who are starving in a third world country on television. You educate, here are the facts. You persuade. Yeah, well, something ought to be done about that. You provoke. You have to do something because it's a timely and necessary issue. And you will suffer if you don't do something because look at the tragedy. That's manipulation. Nobody's unaware it's happening, but you can't prevent it. You can only try to counteract it. Propaganda is the next step in the hidden agenda. You bias them. You pander to that bias that you've created. Then you threaten them with an inequity, and that incites them. And then based on the emotional intensity of being incited, then you propagandize by focusing that emotion on a particular issue that really isn't to blame. You make them go out wanting to kill all these kinds of people or vote this way against a law when the law really isn't connected to the issues you've been talking about. That's propaganda, and people don't see it coming. If it's propaganda, they don't see it. Now, if you try to propagandize, but all you're doing is manipulating, then you failed as a propagandist. Propaganda is neither good nor bad. It's neither good nor bad in concept because you could propagandize someone to do something good or propagandize someone to do something bad. The reason that we frown on it is that it happens underneath the level of our consciousness. We're not aware of it. We not only can't counter it like we could with manipulation. Well, I see I'm being manipulated, but I'll come up with my own reasons why I'm still not going to do it. In propaganda, you don't have the opportunity. You walk out being a changed person and you never know what happened. That's the danger of it.